last season on the G.A.M.E. We last left the Malzar, or should I say ex-Malzar, relaxing in his bed, believing he had seen the last of the game. With Player 1 in the form of Jesse's dead brother, and Thomas Abraham being the new declared Malzar, it wouldn't be long until the peace would be interrupted. Sometime in the future, Player 1 has the troubling dream of Jesse blowing up on the ship. He awakes in a fright, tries to ignore it, and goes back to sleep. The next day, Player 1 devises an attack plan while Jesse is tasked with throwing Tom a surprise B-Day party. Because of Tom's lack of companions, Jesse's friends are Tom's friends. Jesse goes to complain to Mom about the whole idea of it, but gets sidetracked. Jesse asks, "What are you doing?"
Nothing. So did you get everything organized? Is Tom coming? Our cousin?
Yeah, we're all set for later. Why, are you gonna come down and say hello?
Yeah, I wouldn't miss it for the world. Just come on down there and yell, "Surprise!"
Weirded out by his brother's response, Jesse pretends to walk away to catch a glimpse of his brother's project. Jesse, not exactly sure what to make of it, brushes it off and desperately requests booze to make it through the night. TM says he has none, then takes out a bottle once Jesse leaves. Jesse opens the door to find an attractive midget holding his runaway dog. She gets pushed aside by Corn, Zach, and Pat, and the three go downstairs for the party. Extremely turned on by this vertically challenged neighbor, Jesse invites her in. All the guys play pill ball, while Short Stuff twiddles her thumbs on the couch. Zach pressures Jesse to talk to her, but Jesse continues to be a pussy. Or coward. The subject of Pat's girlfriend comes up, and Pat gets confused. Also, Jesse asks the Zacks why they weren't at the Overachievers reunion, and the two just say they don't remember. Meanwhile, Player 1 contemplates drinking, makes the guns, and succumbs to the vodka. Jesse walks in on him, and the two decide to share. Player 1 and Jesse play past the bottle and start drinking like fiends. They each say why they want to drink, hear a random gunshot, ignore it, and then Jesse says, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry I shot you. I was scared and afraid, and I thought you were someone. I thought you were something else. I thought I killed you, but I was just too big of a coward to try and save you. I'm sorry." Amused by Jesse's apology, Player 1 starts going apeshit and tells him to Jesse tries to be slick with his nasty vodka breath and learns that her name is Hannah. He learns she likes the show Lost and tries to impress her with his Dharma jumpsuit. Meanwhile, the guys see that the stereo is still on and start playing some NSYNC, which Kornetzer seems to be quite fond of. Player 1 starts getting cold feet and then starts puking uncontrollably. Jesse shows off the jumpsuit and Hannah absolutely loves it. She comes on to Jesse and gives him a massive hard-on. Hannah is disturbingly turned on by this and tries to go in for a kiss, but it gets cut short by the birthday boy. Everyone hides and surprises Tom, including Jesse's nasty boner. Jesse gives Tom his cake and present. Everyone starts singing happy birthday while Player 1 prepares to enact his plan. Player 1 goes downstairs and massacres everyone at the party. And Tom's head lands in the cake. Jesse's dad, with a strange wound on his shoulder, grabs Player 1 and throws him in the cage. Jesse sneaks out and starts freaking out about the massacre. Pat appears and knocks some sense into his friend. Mr. Ridgway comes outside and tells Jesse to take Pat to the hospital. The two start driving to the hospital, but hit William Steadfast on the way. Jesse checks on Will to make sure he's alright, but Will freaks out saying he watched Jesse die. Meanwhile, Pat finds a sling, puts it on, and runs off. Mr. Ridgway and Player 1 exchange words.
Astute observation, Mr. Ridgway. You know, the only reason you're still alive is because I admire your courage to defy the Tsar. Behind blue eyes, no one knows what it's like to be hated.
Well, Player 1, when you finally break free of that cage you've been trapped in your whole life,
Maybe you can get over there and clean up your mess.
Pat races to find Mr. Ridgway. Jesse and Will race to find Pat. Player 1 escapes the cage using the birdhouse, and Mr. Ridgway starts carrying a wounded Tom to the beam. Jesse attempts to get some answers from Player 1, but receives nothing, so Jesse hocks a loogie on his face. Mr. Ridgway collapses because of the pain from his wound, resulting in Tom, the Malazar, regaining consciousness and running away. Player 1 bursts out of the cage, chokes Jesse out with a pool stick, and reveals to Jesse that he is no longer the Malazar. Player 1 then turns into Tom. Jesse and Player 1 join William outside, but Player 1 is not pleased.
What the hell is wrong with you, Player 1? You just killed an innocent man! He was going to help us!
Anyone who knows anything is expendable.
Despite the hostility, they silently agree to join forces, considering they're walking the same path. Mr. Ridgway trudges onward and ends up collapsing onto the dirt road. Jesse smells his brother's rotting corpse, and Player 1 makes a joke. The dynamic duo finally meet up with Pat, who's accusing Mr. Ridgway of being controlled by Player 2.
Player 2? I'm afraid that's impossible. He was suspended from the game for 2 months for breaking the rules. We should have at least one more day before he's active again.
When were you planning on telling us this?
Never.
Pat is still not convinced, while Player 1 decides to join in on the crucifixion just to stir up the pot. Jesse attempts to defend his father, but in the process realizes Tom is nowhere to be found, and his dad is suspiciously right where the beam of light appears. Jesse grills his dad and learns Tom is very much alive, and couldn't be that far away. Meanwhile, the Malazar looks at his wound and gets a strange flashback from when he was sick, coughing up blue blood a couple months ago. We also see this strange memory flash he received while he was sick. Tom faints. Back on the dirt road, Mr. Ridgway attempts to plead his case by explaining he's just trying to end the game. All of a sudden, the attention shifts to Player 1 as Jesse and Pat question his motives. Player 1 says he just wants to win the game. Back in the woods, Tom awakes to find himself in the hands of the ghillie-suited hunter, Sean. Tom learns his wound has been patched up, and that his Goldilocks are no more, thanks to a nasty sticker bush. Player 1 freaks out and waves his gun at everyone, saying,
Are you all just forgetting that I just killed everyone at that party? That I'm a player in this game? That I should be feared? I can kill all of you right now without even batting an eye. I am winning this game, even if it kills me.
Mr. Ridgway then shuts him down and steals the show. Jesse's dad performs this big song and dance about why the game is going on, what it stands for, and how he knows so much. Jesse and Pat buy into it, while Player 1 laughs his ass off. Mr. Ridgway shuts him up by saying he has to make a sacrifice. Player 1 submits. Back in the woods, Sean struggles with the idea of his father killing himself. The two bounce ideas off each other, trying to understand why he would do it.
Why would he blow up that weapons facility in Iraq with himself still inside? I mean, he could have easily triggered that C4 from a safe distance.
Maybe he wanted to die.
See, that's what I thought at first. But my dad was the farthest thing from a coward.
And maybe that's exactly what your father wanted you to think. That he was some hero and not just some coward.
But he was a hero! He sacrificed his life for ours!
But he didn't have to die. So I don't know if I would really call it a sacrifice.
But maybe he didn't have time to get out.
Maybe it was a sacrifice then.
See, that's exactly what I've been saying.
Nah, but not the kind of sacrifice you were suggesting, though.
What do you mean?
Well, perhaps he didn't sacrifice himself to be a hero, or save all our lives, blow up a facility. But what if he sacrificed his life for his purpose?
I don't understand. What are you trying to say?
Look, what I'm trying to say is that your father could have believed that it was his purpose to blow up in that facility, and by fulfilling it, by proving to himself that he could achieve it, that it would be worth losing his life over. And if that's the case, you should be proud knowing that your father died in the best way possible.
A true sacrifice. dying for a purpose greater than living.
Meanwhile, Pat has some issues with working with Player 1, and the two comment on Player 1's magical loss of hair. Player 1 chalks it up to an update. Tom says to Sean,
Weirdest thing. After I was shot, but before he found me, while I was in the woods, I had these weird flashbacks of a couple months ago when I was sick. I remember that while I was sick, it felt like I was in two places at once, and I was also coughing up blue blood.
Pat, Jesse, and Player 1 split up to find Tom, while the Malazar ends up having to explain to Sean that his sister is dead. Jesse returns home to search for Tom, but gets sidetracked by his nosy mother. She accuses him of playing Xbox when he shouldn't have been. It was taken away for 2 months for him not doing his chores a while back. In the woods, Pat thinks he found Tom, when it's actually Player 1. The two find Tom's hair, but get lazy and decide to just go meet up with Jesse. On the dirt road, Sean seeks revenge. He stops all of a sudden, tells Tom to go help Mr. Ridgway, and gives him this wooden stake he's been whittling. Tom runs off, and Sean reassures him he won't be harmed. Jesse gives a sarcastic, half-assed apology and leaves, but Mama ain't no fool. She goes to stop him, but she gets shoved off. Jesse, fed up with it, corners her, punches her 3 times in the face, and leaves. Mrs. Ridgway gets a deja vu from the first playthrough, and now has somewhat of an understanding. Tom wakes up Mr. Ridgway as he gives this devilish smirk toward the stake. Back at home, Jesse's mom apologizes and gives him Mr. Ridgway's police shotgun that he kept under the bed. Jesse twitches and blows his mother away. Pat, Player 1, and Jesse meet up by the old campfire and talk. Jesse realizes he was being controlled by Player 2 and runs off to confront his dad once and for all. Pat and Player 1 follow suit. Jesse and Pat come to find Tom bleeding next to Mr. Ridgway with the stake in his back. Tom pulls out the stake and drops to his knees. Player 2 begins celebrating by singing We Are the Champions and swaying with the Malazar. Tom drops, Jesse pumps his shotty, Mr. Ridgway shoots Pat, the beam appears, and Jesse shoots his dad. Player 1 finally emerges from the woods to find death. Lots and lots of death. He declares the Malazar officially dead, and that the game is null and void considering Player 2 not only didn't get the body up, but also cheated coming in a day early. Jesse rushes over to his dad, who gets a deja vu from when he was dying in the first playthrough. Mr. Ridgway manages to spit out some last-minute advice before he eventually passes away. Jesse then drops the shotty and goes to comfort Pat. The two reflect on what's happened. Pat tells Jesse to let go and end the game. Pat dies, and Jesse, not knowing what else to do, tries to return home, but gets stopped by Player 1. Please don't waste your time. Nothing you say will change my mind.
It doesn't have to be for nothing. You're just gonna let all your loved ones' deaths go in vain? All their sacrifices go to waste?
You don't know the first thing about sacrifice. You would never give your life for someone else or for some greater purpose.
You know, that hurts my feelings.
How can you even say that when you've taken so many innocent lives in the name of some idiotic game?
Go home, Malazar. I don't expect you to understand.
Now I understand full damn well, Player 1. But just like me, you have no idea what the hell you're doing. And you're gonna let Player 2 enter the game, cheat, come in a day early, walk all over you and make you look like a fool. Till what? Till it kills you?
Go home, Malazar! Go home and just waddle in your self-pity!
Go home? Now you want me to go home? There's nothing left for me to go back to! What the hell do you honestly expect me to do?
Come with me.
Come with you where? I don't think I like where this is going.
Player 1 explains that much of the story of him being exiled was true, and he extends an invitation for Jesse to join them up on the ship, so that they can play the game together on another planet. Jesse says,
The moment you catch me playing the game, it's the moment it's game over.
while Player 1 starts calling him Malazar again. Jesse does the one thing he does best and starts hauling ass away, but there's no escaping the beam. Him and Player 1 get sucked up while Player 1's shell rolls on the ground and becomes dust in the wind.